In this video, I want to introduce you to the concept of networking. Why should you do it? Who should do it? My name is Tom Coates. I'm the director here at the Center for Professional Selling. And let's get started. So we asked two questions. Who should network and what exactly is it? So let's start with what is networking. In the best common sense definition of networking, networking is you as an individual going out and connecting, meeting other people for growing your business. That's the primary reason to network. That's the primary thing that you're doing. Now, there's two rationales to why you network, and they both have very important aspects to them. The first one is what most of us think about when we say networking. Most of us think about going out and building relationships, going out and adding to our existing contact base. Unfortunately, most people do that wrong, but that's what they do, what they think they're doing. The second reason is to project influence. So let's knock that out real quick and talk about that before we get into the nuts and bolts of the building the professional network. Why would you want to project influence? You could be in a position in your life to where building additional people in your circle is not really productive. Let's say that you are the president or CEO of a particular company, and that group that really connects with you is really pretty small. Why would you go to a networking event then? What's your purpose? What's your goal there? Well, your goal there is to project influence. You're there just to be seen. It just sounds arrogant, but that's the truth. You're there to be seen by other people, that you're part of the community. If you don't do that, then you end up stuck in your office behind the computer and become irrelevant. So if you're the president, CEO of a company, and you should show up at these board meetings, these boards of nonprofits. You should show up there. You get your picture in the paper. You do good things. You do good things first. The other is icing. You go to, for instance, there's an event in Nashville that is a fundraiser event. So you go to those things. There are several of them. One in particular is operate the breakfast for Operation Stand Down Tennessee. It's a great event. There's always a decent speaker. It's mostly there to raise money for the effort. There's several hundred people there. It's not really a place to build your professional network as much. It's more of a place to do good things, to be seen. It's a great time for that. So you'll have a table there. You'll be the table host. You'll pay for the table. You'll invite people to come to the table with you, and you expect them to contribute toward the cause. Again, doing good things, but at the same time, you're projecting influence. You need to understand one thing about this. The number one rule of projecting influence is to be present. You cannot project influence from your office. It's really difficult. You really have to get out and go out and meet other people, be seen by other people. That's how you truly project influence. All right, so that's the first one. Most of us are not at that part of our lives. Most of us are still building our professional network. We're trying to get in a position where we can serve others by benefiting and growing that network. So here's what we're doing. We're going out to different events, different activities. We're meeting new people. We're connecting with them, and we're adding them to our professional network, okay? There are 3 goals every time you go out to network. Now, these 3 goals, I want you to remember them. They're meet someone new, hold a relevant conversation, and earn a follow-up meeting. Most people don't do that. Here's what is pretty common. Now, I'm going to cover the common mistakes that people make before we start talking about the things to do it right, okay? All right, so most people think that networking is you grab a stack of business cards, right? And you go to something like a Chamber of Commerce event, and you measure success by the number of business cards that you can pass out and collect. That's not networking. That's handing out cards. Because at no point in handing out the cards did you hold a relevant conversation. You may have met a whole bunch of new people, but they probably don't know your name. And yeah, you left them your business card without talking to them. You just handed them your card. I call that a schmoozer, but it's not networking. It's not professional. And quite frankly, if you hand me a card and I don't know who you are, unless there's a coupon for coffee on the back, I'm throwing it away. Hold a conversation with human beings. Don't just pass out cards. Okay? Some people will go to a lunch and learn or banquet or something, and there'll be a table of 8 people at 8 or 10 people at a table. And you'll always have that person on the other side of the table who has a stack of cards and will go, well, grab one and pass them around. You may not know who that person is. You may be at a banquet, a lunch and learn. You may be sitting at a table of 8 or 10 people around a round table, and you have some Yahoo on the other side of the table that's got a stack of business cards, and they say, grab one and pass it along. But you don't know who they are. That's not networking. I have seen people that they go and there's a food there, and they go and grab a breakfast, and they go and grab a whole bunch of breakfast bagels and things like that. They got a plate full of food and a cup of coffee and an orange juice here, and they're trying to juggle all of that, and they're eating breakfast but not meeting new people. That's not networking. That's called eating breakfast. The other one's called passing out cards. I have seen people at these Chamber of Commerce meetings that they go hang out with the same people that they talk to every time. They don't go meet new people. That's not called networking. That's called visiting. So there's a lot of things that networking is, that people think is networking, but it's not. Just because you're at a quote networking event doesn't mean you're actually networking. The only time you're actually networking, by definition, is when you meet new people, you hold a relevant conversation, and you're interesting enough to earn a follow-up meeting. That's networking. It's not always easy either. You know, now it's easy in the point where that everybody else is there to do the same thing, or at least in theory, they're there to do the same thing. It's difficult because often it's crowded, it's noisy. At that dinner table, you can only really speak to the person to your left or right, so that makes it more difficult. So networking is not easy, but it's not passing out cards. It is not, eating breakfast somewhere and not meeting new people. It is not go visiting with your buddies at a networking event. Those things are not networking because you're not reaching your primary goals. During this series, what we'll do is I have a video that we will do on what do you do to prepare for a networking event. Then what do you do during a networking event? The third one will be how do you follow up from a networking event? And then there'll be two more. One will be how to conduct a networking coffee, a professional coffee. So there's that one. And then the last one is going to be a surprise. All right, so we covered all of those things. Before I leave you, I'd like you to ponder a few things or a few places where you might network. Your thoughts of where would you might network. I mentioned some of the common ones. Chamber of Commerce, a lunch and learn, a business lunch or a business banquet. Those are, people think about those. Let me throw a couple more or a few more out there for your consideration. One is your civic club, civic organization, things like Lions Club, Kiwanis, Rotary. These are business clubs that often they're for a nonprofit. Often they're raising money to do good. So the point is you're doing good first, but because you're doing good together with other people, you're building connections. Okay, but remember, you do good first. You have your heart in the right place, and the rest of it comes with it. There's that. There's conferences that you can attend, training seminars that you could attend. There's lunch and learns. I mentioned that earlier. There are actual networking business organizations. There's one that's actually a pretty good starter organization called BNI. It's more of a lead generating group, but it's very disciplined. And if you're new to business, it's a really good place to start. There are other organizations similar to the chamber, but different at the same time. There are roundtables, alternate boards. There are organizations that target certain age groups. So there's those things. But there's also, you can network anywhere. Anywhere where there are human beings. And so you're at a football game and somebody asks you, what do you do? And you give them your elevator pitch. You don't try to sell them, you're at a football game. You don't try to hold a long business conversation with them because you're at a football game. But your elevator pitch hopefully is interesting enough to where that individual would like to know more. And you go, hey, I'd love to share more with you about that. Why don't we grab coffee next week? That's why I want to talk to you about the actual how to do a coffee meeting. So there's that event. I was at a political picnic thing. I ended up closing a deal from a person that I met there. I have a video on how to network via LinkedIn as a starter for that. So there's so many different ways that you could network. It's where you find other human beings. So we'll do that. Please subscribe to the channel, like the video, share it with your buddies. We'll continue to try to put out content like this. I think you'll find the next videos very informative as far as how to do things. Mostly this video has been what not to do. Sometimes you need to know that. Sometimes you need to hear that. Okay, thank you very much.